Onesimus, is the interest above inflation? This is actually a very, very good question for me to help me to clarify about inflation. Now, treasury bonds and unit trusts, at least for the last 10 plus years. Let me start for treasury bonds. For the last 15 years, treasury bonds have returned at a minimum 14% interest per year. Even the worst of treasury bonds in yield, those are the 2-year bonds, the 3-year bonds, they have managed to always come in at a 12%, 13%, 14%. Long-term treasury bonds like the 10-year bonds have been at 14% and above return. That's treasury bonds. On the unit trust, however, for as long as time immemorial I can remember, we have had unit trusts for close to 14 years. They have averaged a double-digit return, all of them. All the fund managers. And it's just getting much better. So for as long as the unit trusts have returned a 10% return, 11%, 12%, these are annualized returns you get in a full year. Then it comes to your question, is the interest above inflation? So then the question becomes, how has inflation been the last 10 to 15 years? In the last 10 years, inflation was highest in 2022 October. That's when it peaked at 10%. At that time, I think the war of Russia and Ukraine had just started. We had a global economic shock, and the inflation reached 10%. Since then, from 2022 to 2026, inflation has been below 5%. And Bank of Uganda's medium-term target, its inflation targeting, is for inflation to be 5%. And there is always a confusion. People think when we say inflation is below 5% or it's low, it means things don't, the basket of things don't grow in prices. They do. But they grow in prices relative to that percentage they have given, which is, let's say, 5%, 4%. Before 2022, from 2016 to 2022, inflation was between 3% to 5% also. So that's why 2022, especially from July till like November, it was a unique period. Everyone felt it. It reached close to 10%. It peaked, I think, at around 11%. But the economy found a way and it recovered. Now, when you bring that back home, the other time maybe which I can talk about at an inflationary point of view is 2011. And in 2011, it was caused by the election. You remember the election of 2011? Besigye and Museveni. There was so much money that was circulated. I think that was the first election where money played an extremely significant role. An extremely significant role. We had never seen anything like that. And we have never recovered. And the inflation it left behind was so much. I think inflation at that time reached almost 14%. That was 2011. But Bank of Uganda, because one of its twin pillars, its twin target is to always put inflation under control, they would sacrifice everything to just put inflation back to normal. And they found its way back. So, having established that background, so you can see that in the last 10-15 years, the return you have been getting, or people have been getting on treasury bonds, and the return people have been getting on unit trust is above inflation. So the real return is okay. For so long, we have had inflation when it's rotating around the 2%, 3%, and 4%. So if I'm investing in a bond for 15%, it means I am having a double-digit return of 11%. So that it's extremely important to that level on why we need to understand it that way.